Now listen close, and pour yourself a nice warm cup of tea, 'cause this one's gonna take you on a little journey. You see, sometimes in life, it's best to wear a mask. A humble mask, one that makes folks think you're just some quiet, harmless soul without much to offer. Maybe no fancy degrees, no flashy cars, no big house, just a simple, soft-spoken person who don't cause no trouble. And when you do that, honey, you get to watch the real colors show. You see who respects you for what you are and who looks down on you, 'cause they think you're weak. That's exactly what I did when I first met my daughter-in-law's family. Now, I ain't gonna lie, they looked me up and down like I was some poor, Nava mama from that side of town. The kind they figured had no voice, no backbone. And you know what? I let him think that. I wore my faded dress, kept my head low, and acted like I didn't know the first thing about the finer things in life. But baby, you should have seen their faces when the truth came out. When they realized that this quiet little woman they thought was just a nobody was the backbone behind the son they loved so much. I wasn't just some poor mama. I was a woman who raised a man with heart, with dignity, and with the kind of strength you can't fake. So sometimes, it pays to let folks think they got the upper hand. Because, when you reveal yourself in your full glory, honey, that's when the real respect starts. And oh, it turned out, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Alright, lean in close. 'Cause this part here is something you need to hear. When that invitation came to finally meet her family, the folks who raised the woman my son was about to marry, I didn't rush to put on anything flashy. No, sir. I kept it simple. I pulled out my old church dress, you know the one. The faded one with the hem that's a little worn, but holds more stories than any new gown ever could. I didn't wear no jewelry, didn't bother with fancy shoes. Just my flats and that scarf I love so much, the one they probably thought I picked up at some bargain bin or thrift store. But honey, that scarf was pure silk, a family heirloom passed down from my mama's mama, a woman who never had much money but was born with class stitched into her very soul. When I stepped into that house, all tidy and quiet, I could feel their eyes on me before I saw even one smile. It was like walking into a room full of whispers and sideways glances. One lady, probably thinking she was being discreet, murmured, "Oh, so this is his mother." Another, with just a hint of a smirk, said, "Bless her heart." Baby, those words weren't kind. They were like little needles poking at my spirit. But I didn't flinch. No, I smiled. Soft and sweet like butter that ain't melted yet but ready to spread warmth if given the chance. You see, folks will judge your story before they even open the book. They'll look at your shoes before they listen to your words. They'll size up your dress before they ask about your heart. And that's okay. Sometimes, you gotta let them think you're small, let them believe you're quiet, so you can learn who's really worth your time, and who's just looking down on you because of what they see on the outside. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying pretend to be someone you're not. No, baby, humility isn't weakness. It's strategy. Like Oprah said once, I knew I was destined for greatness, even when I was wearing potato sacks as dresses. That's the truth right there. Sometimes you gotta dress down to level up. Let folks think you came to beg when really you came to observe, to watch, to learn, to know who's playing fair and who's just putting on a show. I stood there quietly, taking it all in, like a gentle river carving out its path. I wasn't rushed or bothered by their sneers. Because I knew the story wasn't over, not by a long shot. I carried the strength of generations in that faded dress and that silk scarf, strength that no fancy suit or sparkling jewel could replace. And baby, let me tell you, by the time I left that room, those eyes looking down on me weren't so quick to judge anymore. They had seen just enough to know that this quiet woman was the mother of the man they loved. And sometimes, that's all you need to turn the tide. So remember this when you walk into a room that don't seem ready for you. Walk soft, walk humble, but carry yourself like you own every step you take. Because humility can be the quietest, most powerful form of revenge. Let me tell you, I've been around enough tables to know which fork goes where. 6 different forks, no less. I've sat at galas where the chandeliers hang low and the women wear pearls to bed, where judges and senators nod politely as you sip your wine and smile like you belong. But on that night, when I sat down at the dinner table with my daughter-in-law's family, I did something a little different. I picked up the wrong fork. Yep, just like that. I held it up, gave a little chuckle, and said, "Oops, I'm not used to all this." Now, you should have seen the way her mama looked at me, as if I'd just wandered out of some country garden, all innocent and clueless. "Don't worry," she said, with a tight smile. "You'll catch on." I sure would. That night they talked around me, not to me, like I was some background music, some quiet noise in the room that didn't deserve a real seat at the conversation. They bragged about their fancy schools, their trips abroad, their so-called lineage, the kind that they thought meant something. They rattled off names and places like trophies, thinking I wouldn't know the difference between a Bordeaux and some boxed wine from the corner store. But baby, what they couldn't see, what they couldn't smell, was the garden I'd grown back home. I'd planted seeds that flourished, raised a son who carried himself with manners, ambition, and a strength that no fancy schooling could buy. And now their daughter wanted to marry my harvest. See, people will often try to distract you with glitter and glam, hoping you won't notice the gold you carry deep inside. But honey, don't ever let their sparkle fool you. Sometimes, the real treasure isn't the loudest or the flashiest. It's the quiet strength you build with your own 2 hands and a whole lot of heart. I thought of what Maya Angelou once said. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And believe them, I did. Every dismissive glance, every sideways comment. It told me exactly what I needed to know about their hearts. But here's the thing. They didn't realize that while they were busy showing off, I was watching, learning, and preparing. Because real power isn't always in the spotlight. Sometimes, it's in the quiet moments when you hold your head high, even when they look down on you. So that night, I didn't correct my forks or challenge their words. I just smiled, nodded, and let them reveal themselves. And baby, that was the sweetest part of the whole evening. Because when you know who you are, you don't have to prove it to anyone. You just let your life do the talking. After that dinner, weeks went by and the wedding plans started rolling in like a slow river gaining speed. I offered to help. Just small things, here and there. But each time, they waved me off with a polite, "We've got it handled." I smiled and stepped back, knowing sometimes you gotta let folks think they're running the show. But then, just days before the big day, disaster struck. The venue canceled on them at the last minute. Can you imagine the panic? I heard the news before anyone called me, but you best believe, when word got to me, I was ready. Because you see, just 'cause I played the humble card, don't mean I was powerless. I picked up the phone and called a few people I know. Contacts I've made over the years through hard work, quiet kindness, and a reputation for getting things done. The owner of the Botanic Hall, that beautiful place with the chandelier that came all the way from Italy. Yeah, I had him on speed dial, honey. Within hours, the whole wedding was back on track. Fresh flowers flown in, custom catering lined up, gospel choir ready to sing like heaven itself was coming down to bless that day. Nobody asked me how it happened, and I didn't volunteer the secret. I just smiled from the sidelines, watching it all unfold. But I couldn't help but notice the daughter-in-law's mama that day. Her eyes were wide, like she'd just seen a ghost. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, realizing maybe I wasn't quite the country bumpkin she thought I was. So I walked over to her and patted her shoulder gently and said, "Oh honey, I may act country, but I ain't never been common. That's the thing about revenge. It don't have to be loud, flashy, or dramatic. Sometimes it's a quiet, gentle reminder, a soft knock on the door that lets folks know you've been playing chess while they're still learning checkers. It's about knowing your worth without yelling it from the rooftops. It's about letting your actions do the talking when words fall short. I'm reminded of an old Yoruba proverb that says, "The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." Now, I never burned a thing. I didn't need to. Instead, I blessed the village. I showed up with grace, with strength, and with a heart so full it couldn't help but pour out. And baby, that day, standing quietly behind that altar, watching my son marry the woman he loved, I felt something powerful. I felt the truth that humility isn't submission. It's a kind of strength that holds steady even when the world doubts you. It's knowing who you are, where you come from, and never letting anyone else's opinion shake that foundation. So, when life throws you curveballs, when folks try to write your story before you get a chance to tell it, remember this: sometimes the best revenge is not clapping back or raising your voice. Sometimes it's standing tall, doing your part, and showing up with a dignity that can't be denied. And honey, when you do that, they'll remember you long after the noise has died down. After the wedding, something started to change. The cold shoulders and sideways glances began to melt away, like snow under the first warm rays of spring. They started calling me dear, not the same tone as before, but softer, more cautious, like they were testing the waters to see if I'd bite. They asked for recipes, the kind of little things that feel so small but mean the world when they come from unexpected places. And can you believe it? They even tried to talk books with me, like I was some fresh face with no education. Completely forgetting that right there in my kitchen, hanging quietly by the window, was my degree framed and shining back at me, a reminder of every late night and sacrifice that got me there. And me. Well, honey, I smiled that same soft smile I always wear, the one that's kind but firm, gentle but unshakable. Because I didn't need their apology, no, I had already forgiven their ignorance long before they even thought to say sorry. Forgiveness, baby, that's a gift you give yourself. It frees your heart from the heavy chains of bitterness and lets you breathe easy. But just because I forgave them, don't think for 1 minute that I forgot. Oh no, the memory of how they acted, how they looked down on me like I was less than, stayed tucked inside like a warning bell. You see, forgiveness is for your peace. It's like washing your hands after handling something dirty. You don't keep the dirt on your skin, but you remember where it came from so you don't touch it again. That's why I say boundaries. That's for your protection. It's the invisible line you draw that says, you may sit at my table, but you will learn how to eat with grace. You can't let people treat you like you're less, then come back later and expect the welcome mat to be rolled out without you standing tall. They have to respect the woman, the mother, the person you are. Not just the shadow they first thought they saw. And honey, sometimes you have to remind them, not with anger or loud words, but with steady strength and a heart that knows its worth. I remember a time, long before all this, when I was told I wouldn't amount to much because I came from humble beginnings. Those words stung, sure, but they never broke me. I learned to carry myself with pride, to forgive without forgetting, and to always keep my dignity intact. That's the real revenge, baby. Not shouting back, but standing so tall that no one can look down on you again. So if you ever find yourself at someone's table, feeling like you don't belong, remember this story. Forgive, yes, but protect yourself too. Hold your head high, keep your heart open, but don't let anyone's doubt dim your light. You belong right there with all your grace and all your power, and the day they see it, that's when the real peace begins. Now listen here, this part right here. This is what I want you to carry with you wherever you go. Don't you ever, not for a single minute, shrink yourself so someone else can feel bigger in the room. That's a trap as old as time, and it only leaves you smaller, dimmer, quieter than you were meant to be. Let them underestimate you. Let them talk all the foolishness they want, because while they're busy staring down their noses, you're out here building something strong, something real, that they're going to have to walk through with respect. You see, sometimes the best revenge ain't a shout or a showdown. No, sometimes it's the quiet power of success, the kind of victory that sneaks up slow but hits hard. It's letting folks see what they missed while they were too busy looking down on you. That's the kind of lesson that sticks longer than any angry word. And that daughter-in-law of mine. Oh, she learned, baby. She saw how her mama acted, how she carried herself with a sharp tongue and sharper eyes. But she also saw me, how I kept my head high, how I stood tall even when the room was cold. One day she came to me, tears in her eyes, and she said something that made my heart swell so big I thought it might burst. She said, "I want to be more like you." And baby, that was the real win. Not the fancy dinners or the whispered apologies, not the soft smiles or the polite nods. It was that moment, the one where a young woman looks at you, not just as her son's mama, but as a woman worthy of admiration and respect. That's legacy. That's the quiet power we carry through generations. So, honey, when you feel the world trying to push you down, remember this story. Remember the quiet strength of a woman who wore a faded dress and a silk scarf, who knew her worth even when no one else did. Remember the power of standing tall without shouting, of forgiving without forgetting, and of loving fiercely even when it wasn't easy. You don't have to fight loud to win. Sometimes, all it takes is the grace to be yourself and the courage to keep going. Because in the end, the most powerful revenge is the one that leaves you whole and leaves them wondering what they missed. And baby, that's a story worth telling. Here's something I want you to hold close. Be humble, yes, but be aware. There's a quiet power in letting silence speak before your status does. Sometimes folks want to hear you shout, want to see you wave your flags all high and mighty, but the real strength, it's in the quiet moments, in the pause before you say a word. It's in standing so firm that you don't need to explain your worth. You don't have to talk yourself up like a salesman at the market. No, you just show it when it matters, like a flower blooming in its own time. And let me tell you, keep your receipts. Not to use them for petty revenge, no ma'am, but for revelation. Keep them as reminders of where you've been, what you've overcome, and who tried to underestimate your power. Because one day, when the time is right, those quiet proofs of your strength will shine brighter than any spotlight. They'll tell your story better than words ever could. Let love lead you, baby, but don't forget to let wisdom walk right beside it. Love without wisdom can leave you open to hurt, but wisdom without love can leave you cold. When you carry both, you move through this world with grace and power. A combination that's unstoppable. Now, I want you to reflect for a moment. The next time you feel small in somebody's mansion, when you walk into a room and feel like an outsider, remember this: a shack with peace is richer than a castle filled with pride. Sometimes, the poor mama you ignore, the one who looks like she's got nothing, is actually the quiet queen who built empires while they were too busy counting pennies. You see, life has a way of teaching us these lessons, sometimes softly, sometimes with a hard slap to the heart. But the wisdom stays with you. It grows inside you like a seed, until one day you stand taller, stronger, and wiser than ever before. And baby, that's the end of the story, at least for now. But the lessons, oh, those live on. They walk with you every day, in every step you take. So now go on, child. Let 'em think you ain't got nothing. Let them underestimate your quiet strength. But when you do show up, oh, make sure you show out. Make sure they see what they missed, what they couldn't understand. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's the power of a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to claim her place in this world.